appreciate. If we do not appreciate AI well enough, then we are likely to be replaced by it. But AI cannot replace human beings. If we appreciate what we have today and create more systems that are going to appreciate AI and to also divert AI use into what is meaningful to human consumption. So I am Rose Poker. I am going to be the moderator for today. As I've mentioned, young people developer, and I love the growth of young people through telling stories and enhancing impact. So it is 10 minutes past the hour. Thank you very much for being patient as we were putting everything together. So today's session, of course, has been put together by our very able team from SJ Consultech, headed and guided by the lead, that is Ms. Sharon Kamau. We are very happy to have you here, and we're very happy that you have been able to put this together for us. Um, if you could probably just unmute and say hello before we go right in.
Hey everybody, I'm Sharon Kamau from SJ Consultech. I know we've interacted a couple of times, and it's good to have all of you on board, the 40 of you. And Spock, I've seen someone who is saying it's a fun fact that let me see, it's a she or a he, I've seen it somewhere. Elizabeth Mweni from Kenya. Fun fact, I think our facilitator today is my former schoolmate. Maybe you should look for her after the webinar. Yeah, and it's amazing to see all of you here. I'm here, but today Poka is doing the moderation. And yeah, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to learn from our speaker, Bukayo Sharamo. And I know it's going to be an amazing session. Asanteni sana. Thank you, Poka. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sharon. So we are going to give Ms. Bukayo her flowers. So today's session is a dynamic session. AI just came into play in the recent past, and it has become like it is taking over. Yeah. So today we have a very dynamic webinar where we are going to explore AI tools and how they can be used to enhance communication in an ethical manner and in also a creative manner. So another thing we should learn throughout this session is how to write stronger reports, how to brainstorm and create better content from the ideas that we already have through effective prompting of AI. And we also want to streamline messaging for greater clarity and greater impact. The whole idea behind great storytelling is to be able to sell and give greater impact to the society. So the session will guide us through how we can use AI to spark creativity and also to save time and to stay focused on our core message. So we will discover how to design eye-catching visuals without really needing design expertise, which is very important also for communication efforts and making content more engaging and professional. So today's session is ideally going to be equipping us with practical strategies of using and appreciating AI tools more responsibly and staying true to the unique voice and values of our stories. And as we have mentioned, AI is not replacing humans if we use it responsibly and if we use it as expected. So today we are going to have be guided through the session by our very able speaker, Bukayo Sharamo, and I am going to probably just give a bit of flowers to Bukayo as our speaker for the day. She's a technical advisor with Comundo, Switzerland's leading organization for personal development cooperation. Comundo places skilled professionals directly within local organizations in the global south to build capacity, to transfer expertise, and to strengthen systems for long-term impact. And based in Kenya, Bukayo works with the vocational training institutes to integrate AI and digital tools into education programs to help young people gain practical skills, which connects real job opportunities to these young people, which is very much needed. You may agree with me, because today's young people have a lot. We have a lot of unemployed young people. So if we are able to learn how to connect our digital tools to real job opportunities, then why not? Bakayo's work, Ms. Bakayo's work centers on responsible AI use, building digital capacity, and ensuring technology solutions fit in the local context to serve the needs of the community. As the co-founder and digital transformation lead at FJ Consultech, Ms. Bokayo helps organizations to use emerging technologies to improve how they plan, how they communicate, and how they operate. Her expertise includes AI integration, system design, digital storytelling, and in this session, she's going to demonstrate practically how we can use generative AI in everyday communication. To do, for instance, writing stronger reports, as we have mentioned, to create content, meaningful content that does not lose focus, and to efficiently create more content and design clear visuals, keeping the message in focus. Help me to welcome Ms. Bokayo Sharamo as she takes us through today's presentation. Welcome, Ms. Bokayo.
Thank you very much, Poka. Thank you for the nice introduction. I think that has captured a lot more of who I am and what I do. And thank you to all the participants for being here this evening and for joining this exciting session. I presume that the topic on AI and the practical applications of our work is always an interesting topic. So thank you all and welcome to this session. As we start, I think also because of time, and I know that my presentation is quite long, not really long, but I'm sure it's an interesting topic where we'll have a lot of questions. I'll dive right in, but I would like to start off by first interacting with you through the chat section and asking you what it means to you, what storytelling means for you. How would you, like a quick one word or sentence to describe storytelling? I hope I am loud and clear.
Yes, you are loud and clear.
Yes, so what's one word that comes to mind when you hear of storytelling in your line of work? I see Mary is saying emotive. I see some Sana is saying storytelling is conveying your story in a meaningful way, good flow, impact again from Paul. Yes, creation of vivid pictures, sharing impact. Miriam is saying engaging, disseminating your organization's impact and success. Yes. I think the key word here is impact, engaging, and sharing the information and narrating the impact through your networks and through other means to your target audience. Okay, I see Linda is saying journey, Sana is saying connecting knowledge with emotions. These are all quite accurate if you ask me, because stories, as we will get deeper into the presentation, it's a way of expressing, it's an expression to other people of your impact, of your work, of your knowledge, or whatever it is that you're trying to disseminate through different channels of communication, as Adebayo is saying. So today I would like to welcome you to this session on using artificial intelligence in strategic communication and storytelling. So this is basically a session where we would look at the different ways in what it means to leverage artificial intelligence to amplify your authentic voice and to just pass your message to to your target audience through compelling visuals, like someone said, and through just contextualized and quite visual and simplified ways where you get to express the same to your people. And yeah, today we'll look at how AI can transform your communication from data into stories that inspire action. So when we talk about stories, I would first like to reference what I read a book on by Yuval Noah Harari called A Brief History of Information Networks from the Stone Age to the Era of AI. And one thing that stood out for me in the beginning is his expression that humans create things that are intersubjective. So what I mean by that is like what we obviously know, like nations, currencies. It's not limited to just that. You can also maybe mention in the chat section what these intersubjective realities are. It can be one common goal that you have as a brand. It can be one common goal that you have as an NGO. It can be one common goal that you have as an institution. So stories, what gives human beings powers is the ability to create a nexus through a certain story. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's the same thing that you're trying to do in the different line of work. There is a problem that you're trying to solve, or there's a bridge you're trying to gap. And the idea is that for you to connect with people, to express the same, to get to achieve that, or to get to move up that ladder, you have to create a platform where you link with like-minded people and you get to express the same of your impact, and you engage them through different mechanisms now. And what you'll realize is that technology plays a big part as an engine that facilitates that process, and that's what we'll come to see at the course of this session. So I mean, the whole idea of stories is that it creates imagined realities that drive a collective action. It establishes trust, creates meaning. As a brand, you get to create loyalty. As an NGO, you get to compel your donors, or you get to compel the people you're trying to come together and achieve something through your stories. Your stories basically it gives an interpretation of your data, of the numbers that you have. It packages the cause of what you're doing to such a way that it gets to, I think the right word I'd like to use is it gets to touch the nerve of the people you're interested in. So, and storytelling gives you strategic power to do that, to inspire your donors, to build brand loyalty, to align corporate teams. And it's a fundamental strategy in moving up that ladder to achieving that. So as an organization or as an institution, how well you put your stories of your impact out there is quite proportional to your visibility and how aware people will be of your work, or how people will be of you as a person. This, as a quick example, is, for example, if you have a good presence on LinkedIn and you get to tell your stories, you get to tell people about what you do on a daily basis, you get to be people's top of mind, because through the knowledge that you are sharing and the impact that you're putting out there, you get to be people's top of mind. Yes, so this is just a brief description. I mean, if you're talking about the current technology, we kind of have to look back at history and how things evolved. So when you look at storytelling, it started back the first industrial revolution or something, when people got to know that they can exchange information, but through oral cultures, like the basic storytelling from how you'd sit around the fire and stories are told and it is passed on to the next generation, to when now written networks were developed, printing press, typewriters, etc., where people now got to see new possibilities for mass communication and sharing knowledge through written materials. And then now the digital era comes in, where different types of technologies are coming together to facilitate that. That one, a good example is just websites and blogs and social media, for example. Before now the introduction of AI to those systems, what previously existed is how basically when the internet was democratized for storytelling, and anyone globally can share. And it actually, that's what made the world the global village, if you think about it. It created an information network where different knowledge bases can be put together and people can get to access the same. So you're making your story or your information available, and that still in return builds up to your credibility, builds up to awareness of what you do, and you get to put your impact out there. And then now in the AI era, what it brings, the change it brings to how storytelling basically works is it has altered that workflow by making it more efficient in a way. I mean, I think that one you can define for yourself. Is it efficient? Is it lazy? We'll interact with that later. But yeah, so AI represents a momentous evolution where it is capable of making decisions, generating ideas. I mean, when you look at, I'm pretty sure, or rather, how many of you have interacted with AI? And when you say interact with AI, what exactly do you mean? What do you use? Is it ChatGPT? Could you maybe just write in the chat section the level to which you've interacted with AI and what exactly that you've interacted with? And yeah, so the most common AI tool that we interact with is, for example, ChatGPT, where you get to brainstorm, or you get to chat with an interface in your own natural language, like English or Kiswahili, and you get generated text or content, which you basically now puts together the different ideas that you're throwing with the chatbot. So what is now, what does AI bring? Or wait, before I continue, let me quickly read what you are putting in the chat section. Sorry. Yeah, analyzing and summarizing work reports, ChatGPT, Canva, ChatGPT, Gemini, Notion, Grammarly. Yeah, but yeah, I can see that we already have some champions among us in using AI in our daily work. Yeah, so I see Valentine is saying she's majorly interacted with ChatGPT, Gemini for research, and Leonardo for image generation. Gemini, I mean, you should be out here looking at the comment section. This is feedback based on practice. So this is where you get to take notes of what ideas or what tool you can try next. Yeah, Gemini, Gemini saying nano banana. I'm sorry if I read that wrong. She's saying that she asked AI for the flag of Cameroon and it gave that of Ghana, and you gave up immediately. Well, that clearly shows that AI can really hallucinate, and it's based on what it already has. So yeah, but for that one, I'll mention something later why you get some random output that can frustrate you sometimes. Yeah. Claude, Copilot, Suno for music generation, Anara for research, Meta AI, it reaches the point that it says you're not able to communicate in Shona, a Zimbabwean language, that if you keep asking, okay, interesting. Julius for statistical analysis. Yeah. And just keep putting out those tools out here. I'm pretty sure that we'll be taking notes to what tool to try next, because I don't think we can capture, I mean, the catalog of AI tools is so extensive that covers different use cases and different outputs. We cannot really discuss in one sitting, so we can just be interacting in the chat section for that. Yeah. So AI has brought upon a different era, a different way of putting together stories. It's what we call, like, it brings, it has given us a different capacity and capability to do things more creatively. I mean, like Suno for music generation, you put together some lyrics or some content on ChatGPT, you paste it in Suno, and you have a song. I mean, if you want to customize specific poem for your target audience, maybe students, where you're teaching them about, I mean, back when we were in primary school, I remember we used to learn a lot of things, especially like in social studies and science, through songs. So you see, you can just put together learning materials creatively through a song where you just teach the students the same. But the idea is you get to have a platform where you can be as creative as you can in your output. So that kind of has revolutionized our capacity and capability to do things different. And the whole idea, generating and disseminating stories, both true and false, that was solely on human beings, but now you have AI that you can use as even a peer reviewer, where you can get to cross-check your draft. I mean, you're trying to come up with this and that, but then again, you're not very sure if this method would work, if it fits this context. Yeah. And then it brings upon a strategic opportunity where we have a scale and speed that we can use to amplify our voices, amplify the voices of your cause, for example, of your cause or what you're trying to do, whatever objectives that you have, where you blend in both your wisdom and your thinking patterns with a platform that gives you tools in excess and resources. I mean, what I always say is AI gives you unlimited chances of being creative with what you want to do. I mean, you have this crazy idea in your mind where you want to transform this picture with this and this and that. But then again, unless you had proper photo editing skills, you weren't able to do that back then. But now you have access to tools that require less knowledge, if I may say, and using them the same way with no code or low code tools, where you can just create a quick agent or a quick website or web page without having the tangible skills. That gives you a strategic opportunity to do much more than you could without. And that also gives you a chance to see the different ways you can package the data, and you can package, I mean, in the second session of the masterclass, when we were talking about communication and building confidence, the speaker said that numbers speak loud. But then again, your numbers will not make sense if you don't package it right to the audience. So you have a chance to just put together all that information dump and data dump into into something that makes more sense to your donors or to your clients, or to your corporate clients, or whoever your target audience is. Yeah, and why stories are a strategy for the different categories that I've put out here is, I mean, for NGOs and for people, for us who are working in development cooperation, you get to have a chance to transform your data into donor trust and policy change, or just, I mean, for example, when you're preparing, when you had a project with a donor on, let's maybe say, I don't know, something in climate or something in education. You have data that, I mean, the last 6 months, this is what you've done, this is what I've done, these are the number of lives and the number of beneficiaries that you've reached, or in climate, for example, this is to measure that impact. I mean, you can use AI to even come up with a matrix that would help you prepare beforehand. Just go to ChatGPT and you can prompt it. I'm working on this project where we are working on digital literacy for youth in Kilifi County, and I would like to come up with a matrix that would help me measure if we'd meet our objectives. These are the objectives that we had at the beginning of the project. So how will we constantly keep assessing to see if we're on track? And then it helps you also create a baseline at the beginning, so that towards the end of your project, you already have a proper baseline and you already have data that is structured, and you can transform now that data into a narrative that will be compelling to your donors. Like we said, numbers speak, but also how you package your numbers is very important. Yeah, and then for brands, it helps in building credibility and loyalty beyond transactions. I mean, customers who have interacted with brand narratives you have a higher chance of retaining them than those who just, I mean, on features. Like, for example, I'm pretty sure majority of us are on social media here and there. If you see a product that is being reviewed by different users on social media, you have a higher chance of trusting that. I mean, if you see a number of people giving good reviews about a certain skincare product, and you see videos about that, different people, different skin tones, different skin types, you have a higher chance of trusting that brand because they've put out their story that this works very well for this skin type, this works very well for this environment. So that makes it very practical, because I don't have to think so much, will this work for me? Like, you already have interacted with the narrative, and you already have interacted with the product from a different perspective, from a different lens. So it builds credibility in that sense. And how are brands doing that right now? I mean, if you don't have a budget for coming up with really good videos that show the product in use, I mean, you just jump to ChatGPT I think we can, if we have time, we can do a quick demonstration, but I have prompts that I have said with the presentation. If I'll share it after the session and you'll have a look at it. But right now, something, especially with content creation, when we say content like videos, for example, you just go to ChatGPT and explain, I want a video where there's an avatar, or there's an espresso machine that has this type of reveal going on, and then you show the coffee beans, the coffee being grinded, and the output at the end. I mean, if you don't have the infrastructure or the money to actually take that video yourself, you have a chance of creating a very realistic video using VO3, and you come up with something that shows the user exactly what it is, and you get to play around with it, and you get to be creative with it. Like maybe something pops, the transition from one frame to another. You get to play around with a lot. So even for brands, you get to have different ways where you still meet your objectives, and you still get to have what you're not even just content creation, planning maybe your schedule, planning your content calendar, your communications calendar, whatever productivity template that you may need to achieve your goals. I was listening to a speaker, it was a clip of a speaker from one of her sessions, and she was explaining how we underutilize AI a lot, because I mean, if you want to transform pictures of things and everything, and you do not have the time for it. I mean, what she says, like, you have to break down exactly the tools that you have, what type of impact you want to achieve, and then now you can just ask ChatGPT to come up with a content calendar where you get to spend 20 minutes a day on updating your social media pages or updating your website, or just some sort of work plan that you have. I mean, you've just put out there what your objectives are, what your performance indicators are, and how frequent you want that to be done. So, I mean, of course, you're co-creating with AI, but you get to have a strategy in place that you've put to ensure you get to achieve that. Because, I mean, you have to be consistent even in the different things in the ways you're doing your stories. So for you to build up to something, maybe you want to start off with, I mean, like for this masterclass, for example, you had to build up to something. You cannot just start with storytelling. You have to first introduce to people what is communication, why communication, move on to the next thing, different angles. I mean, the next, like for example, advocacy communication, that had to happen after the first class on actual communication, building confidence, and then now advocacy, and then crisis management. And now when we get to implementation of most of these things, technology is always a support factor to just facilitate. Then now we get to how to use AI in doing all that. So, I mean, even storytelling is not just the output that you have. It's not just your newsletter. It's from the beginning, how you're doing your research, how you're coming up with your strategies, and what type of systems and workflows you put in place to ensure you're consistent and building up to something. For corporates, stories align teams, inspire culture change, organizations with strong narrative cultures, you get to have a higher employee engagement, and better change. I mean, you kind of get to have a platform where you interact with your team better and get to achieve that. Like, for example, corporates mostly, an example I like using is, well, since we're using Zoho, let me use Zoho, for example. I like what Zoho are doing in just simplifying an entire workplace of a corporate or any institution, for example. I mean, you do webinars, you need to have a planner, you need to have a project management platform, you need to have all these different angles. So why not just simplify it by putting it in one place? And I mean, for a webinar, you need to do the setting, you need to send out your emails, you need to do all that. But making it easy for the client by putting together everything makes sense. So it's the same thing for when now you're using AI to come up even with your storytelling or communication plan. You kind of have to look at the different ways you can increase your efficiency in doing that, be it collaboration, be it a strategic way of doing everything. But yes, a strategic formula to get closer to achieving what you want to do with your storytelling is you need data, you need your numbers, and you also need to package it right. I mean, human beings, like I always say, marketing is all about emotions as well. I mean, if I want to sell a skincare product, you have to convince someone that this is what they've been looking for. This is the right thing for their skin. This will work. Like, it's more, you have to know the emotion you're targeting. If it is for donor relations, you have to show that this is all for impact. You have to show if it's, for example, a faith-based institution, it has to kind of relate with the values and ethos that they have. So you need to kind of know what type of emotion that you're looking at and create the context for it. I won't talk much about this because I believe we all know. I mean, the traditional way of planning your communication and the AI enhanced way is that, traditional approach takes days and weeks when you do your research. A single narrative, a narrative may just have one angle, and there's the whole manual design. Like, for example, doing presentations now is different than how we used to do it years ago. I mean, 5-10 years ago, not even 10 years ago, let's even say last year, before most of these AI presentation tools were known. I mean, you had to sit down, write your content, do your draft, and then slide by slide, element by element, you had to do it. And that was manual and took a lot of time. And then you also you don't get to really customize it to your target audience because you're using so much time to just put together your presentation. You're not actually considering who are my target audience to kind of know if you're targeting, if you're customizing it for them. And then the process is also slow and often not really iterative because it's a strict way you're doing something. I'll do my research, write my notes, go to Google, just do a few things, go to the library, whatever. But then the AI enhanced workflow, it's research is in minutes. I mean, I see Elvis is saying ChatGPT and Perplexity. I mean, Perplexity, you get to have your references and citation. If you ask the question, if you're prompting it right, you get to have the research materials you're looking for that is cited. So of course you have to go and proof check if that is actually existing, number one, because I mean, as we all know, sometimes AI can be very frustrating and it has its hallucination. So you have to be very careful and you validate. But after that, now it makes it easier than the traditional Google search where you have a customized AI chatbot that is a research engine that helps you do your smart search. And then another thing that I like is, I mean, when you're now on your ChatGPT bouncing ideas, you can get to ask the different ways in which you can get a story. There are different angles in which you can package it to kind of customize it, right, like we said. And then automated design and multilingual content. I mean, I feel like multilingual content, we're still on the way of perfecting that, but there are data sets of even African languages, as well as, I mean, I think African language data set is the hardest one to have, especially because, I mean, the frequently spoken languages like English, French, Spanish, German, that is easily available. But then when you look at the very many African languages, it becomes difficult. And I mean, in the work that you do, when we say you want to localize content, you want to localize it to the local language that is spoken, to Kikuyu, to all the different local languages that is spoken. I think someone from Zimbabwe mentioned something like that. So yeah, Shona, yeah. I mean, there are different African languages and actually just globally. So we are still working on the way of getting the right, all the right data sets. But then again, it makes it more practical when your story is to the right people and you use the right localization method for doing that. And then, yeah, of course, personalized audience segments. I mean, even market research right now is different than market research back then. You go to Google Trends and then you see maybe something or whatever methods that you use for market research. And you get to, I mean, you're like, this I'm doing for grade 6 learners, this I'm doing for high school learners, this I'm doing for corporates in marketing, this I'm doing for corporates in development cooperation. So like you get to customize to the niched audience. And of course, rapid testing and optimization. Yeah, I mean, we all have to remember that AI doesn't replace your strategic thinking. It just amplifies it more or less, amplifies your strategic thinking and your creativity. So the same quality output that took weeks can now be achieved in days or even minutes, if you ask me. it frees you to focus on what matters most, and you choose the right story for the right audience at the right moment. Yeah, this is what I'd call a strategic storytelling workflow. It is basically an explanation of what we've been building up on from the beginning of the session. I mean, you start with strategic discovery. You want to do a smart search when you're brainstorming for your ideas. You're looking at multiple story angles and narrative frameworks. You can use ChatGPT for that. You can use Claude for that, especially if you have I mean, I think for this one, it's more or less what you're most comfortable with. And we've had that discussion with different people before, and it's always, ChatGPT, I've used ChatGPT for a long time. So to an extent, it has learned my role and how I talk to it. And of course, the more you use the more you use the chatbot, the more it learns. So it essentially does make sense. But then they all have their different strengths. So for example, Claude is often known for how well it interacts with documents like summaries, for example, etc. Yeah, so just to get, or you can even bounce between. What I like doing is bouncing between different tools, because I mean, it's good to see if this angle is better than this angle, or how you can complement the two. And after that, I mean, you've done your research, you've put together different materials, and you've kind of seen, I mean, this is a little bit more an emotional angle. This is a little bit more a hero-focused angle. This is a little bit more like factual, and I like this. This is more data-driven. So you get to see what different story angles can work. So basically here, your AI tool, your chatbot, your ChatGPT is like your thinking partner. You're bouncing ideas, or like, okay, I'm thinking of this and this, like, but how can I package this right? And then the next step is truth grounding, the smart search and validation through Perplexity, Notebook LM, to ensure fact-checking insights and reliable sources. If you're not using Notebook LM, I would just write on it, because I mean, especially, I mean, like I said, every work and even the stories that we do, we have to reference it, right? So how can you interact with a million, okay, not a million, that's exaggerated, but how can you interact with different sources and you still get to interact with 5 PDFs, different websites? These are from your smart search on Perplexity, from your ChatGPT findings, from all the different findings you have. I mean, ChatGPT will not be the best to help you interact with those materials such that you get to have an output that would help you in your planning and your thinking. And with Notebook LM, you get to put your sources and you get to interact with all those sources depending on the questions you ask. And you even get to have like explainer videos, explainer audios, mind maps, etc. And what this helps is it helps you come up with a strategy that is very much informed and based on data and the reference materials that you have. And then, yeah, I mean, strategic architecture, that's basically setting up a blueprint that would help you work efficiently. And yeah, planning and systems developed using an example is like Airtable, Notion, Zapier. These all have different roles. Airtable can help you come up with a basic donor management system. It can help you come up with a basic content management system where you just, and it's basically, it's like a low code, no code AI tool that is, so when you talk about generative AI, it generates this type of systems and structures for you. So the more you interact with, the more you'd get to know how best to take advantage of it to come up with these different things. And it helps in collaboration where you get to assign tasks, etc. And you can come up with a lot more than that. Notion is more on knowledge management angle, and Zapier is more automations angle. I mean, if you want to set up a small workflow, I mean, maybe you are in HR and when you're doing your onboarding for maybe a certain role, you get to have like 300 or something applications, and you want it to somewhat filter and you don't want it to mix up with your other emails so that you don't get to see it. I mean, a simple thing you can do is just, yeah, I mean, or even when you're collecting, when you're doing a survey that would inform a certain report you're doing, how can you put up a structure that would help it, make it easy for you? That is what now Zapier would do. And Airtable would help you come up with a structured way where you can keep track of those tasks, you can keep track of what's coming next, you can keep track of donors, you can keep track of projects that you're doing. I mean, the idea is the blueprint that you have in your workflow contributes greatly to how efficient you're going to be. So this is all dependent on your role and how much you need it. And yeah. And then message crafting, content creation with inclusive language, using Sonic, Grammarly, Copy AI to ensure compelling bias-free narratives. And then now when you talk about visual storytelling, you design and emotion through Canva, Midjourney, Pictochart. I mean, these are a few examples, but there are examples where these are examples that depend, of course, on your use case. I mean, if you're on Canva, you might as well just use Canva AI to improve your work. If you need image generation, you have Nano Banana, Midjourney, and all these ideogram, all this really, how best the output would be is dependent on what exactly is the use case that you'd need it for. And yeah, strategic delivery. I mean, the creative ways in which you can deliver your content. I mean, you want a video where you have these avatars, whether you have these avatars, or something even more interesting is that I haven't written here is view 3. I think that's quite, especially when you want to do a certain explainer video about your impact, but you don't want to use images of your beneficiaries, then you can use view 3 to just come up. You can come up with a script. You can even use your ChatGPT or something to come up with a script, and then now you just paste it in view 3, and you get a nice, I'd say it's pretty realistic video where you get to still pass your message. And you get to, I mean, you can now integrate with other stuff, maybe you put it in Haitian, and now you can get like a more personalized content where maybe you want to translate it to Swahili instead of English, or yeah, whatever language that you need. And this workflow is it's circular because it's iterative. I mean, if something is missing, you have to now go back to your brainstorming again, or you have to go and put something up in your structure, or maybe you had started doing the video, but then something is missing, so you have to go back again to your perplexity. I mean, it depends on really what would how your workflow is going, but the idea is it's not a traditional, like what is the word, waterfall something. It's more agile, it's more flexible and iterative, and it depends on what you need. That, like, your feedback, the feedback of your output now informs what next, and you can go back up or continue. Yeah, so strategic discovery tools, I think, like we've mentioned, ChatGPT, Claude, Jasper, Gemini, Copilot. You can mention them, DeepSeek. Yeah. And for these ones, I mean, I just put a few use cases that we can use. I mean, if you want to generate 5 different story angles on complex issues in seconds, for example, if you want to explore narratives and frameworks that is often used, I mean, I think usually, there's you have the data-driven, emotion-led, hero-focused, system change, future vision. These are just different frameworks, and there are obviously very many depending on even your field. I mean, frameworks in climate is different from frameworks in education. So you get to identify these frameworks, go through them, and then now when you're prompting ChatGPT, you can just say draft a grant proposal using Hero's Journey. This is the call, explain it, the challenge, the transformation, the solution. So I mean, I'll give you a few tips about prompting at the end, towards the end of the presentation, but the quality of your output is directly proportional to the quality of your prompt. How well you ask your question, the structure you give it. I mean, this will give you a more focused. Yeah, exactly. Garbage in, garbage out. This will give you a more focused output when you're very clear about what you want, when you're very clear about the output format, when you're very clear about the framework you want to use, when you're very clear about the tiny details. I mean, in a video, you have to be very clear about even the transition speed, the kind of what's it called? The different, maybe I'm not a video editor, so the terms are really not coming to my mind. But yeah, you have to set the stage basically. If you don't set the stage right, then you just get garbage. And that is how frustrating now it becomes with AI. And then, yeah, Claude is excellent at analyzing complex reports and extracting compelling human stories with emotional arcs that resonate with different audiences. I mean, maybe you have your annual report and you want to do a story about that for your donors in Canada or your donors in Germany. Like, the idea is that you want to package that report as a story or as a newsletter that would deeply resonate with the audience you're looking at. And like we said, your audiences are different, and what resonates with one audience is not going to resonate with the other audience. What resonates with I mean, the idea is that the contexts are different, the factors are different. I mean, it can be age factor, it can be demographics, it can be different things. So you have to really customize your stories, right? And yeah, like once again, so you analyze 50-page impact report, extract 3 donor-facing stories with emotional arcs. Maybe this is not even a completely, it's not a very good one because I haven't tried the target audience is, and yeah, but that's the idea. Jasper is an SEO optimized thought leadership content that positions your organization as an industry expert while driving organic discovery. So Jasper is more tailored for storytelling and content development, because yeah, it's more tailored for that. I mean, ChatGPT and the like are general, but then again, when you talk about Jasper, Copy AI, etc., they are more tailored for storytelling. So it's more optimized, and even the output is not, we have different ways of putting it, but the output can be more humanized and the output can be more compelling because it is trained to capture the emotion of your content. Yeah, so yeah, practice from just, well, even when you're doing your basic research and brainstorming, you can try and, I mean, you have to challenge your ChatGPT, you have to challenge your AI tool to be as creative as possible. And that is obviously dependent on what you ask it. So yeah, create 5 different story angles about your current campaign. You specify those angles that you want. If it's different frameworks that you want, specify those frameworks. Get to see the difference and what resonates most, and then now you can build on that. Yeah, so on the truth grounding and research bits, like we said, perplexity, it helps, you can gather, yeah, it's basically just real-time smart search where you get to ask questions directly and and it gives you context and links to verify all that it is saying. So for example, gather 2025 studies on climate migration in Bangladesh, extract 3 resilient narratives with sources, flag Western-centric bias. So I mean, if I Google that, I'm not going to get that output, but with this one, I get to get the different sources that highlight the same, but through different angles. You get to go through those materials, and then now you put them on your notebook LM, and now here you get to interact with these different reports, different websites and papers, and you can get summaries, key insights, and you can ask direct questions and take you to the sources. So you get to interact with your many sources in a very structured and strategic manner, and you can get the insights you're looking for. Yeah. This pyramid of truth basically says, yeah, emotional connection versus storytelling, contextualized insights, and contextualized insights. You can get that through analysis tools like Notebook LM, or even other like more specified academia research tools. I think like it was called Asana or Anara. Yes, I think Linda shared it at somewhere at the top. Yeah, and then now you get your citations, because at the end of the day, what verifies your research and what verifies your story is how you can point to what has sourced it, where you've sourced it from, sorry. Yeah, so ethical checkpoint is always verify your AI sources by clicking through the original documents. Think of AI as a research assistant, not a fact oracle. And like we said, AI is your co-creator, or like your partner in productivity. Like, it's not your assistant. Yeah, we should stop using AI as our assistant. I mean, don't tell AI, write a report for me on this and this and this and this. You have to be very clear in what you're asking, and you have to be very sensitive also about the type of information you're putting out there. So there's all this other ethical consideration that we should put. Yeah, so strategic architecture and planning. Like I mentioned, this is just basically laying out a blueprint of a system of sort that works. A good system makes good stories sustainable, and without strategic coordination, even brilliant content becomes noise. I mean, how many times have we seen on social media platforms or even on the news a story that you're like, this doesn't even make sense. You're trying to lie to us, or like whatever type of feeling you get of a story that is noise. It's not, you don't feel the impact, you don't get to see the objective they're trying to put across. So to avoid that, we have to be very intentional about the systems that we have in place to ensure we come up with authentic and sustainable stories. And how to do that, like we've said, is you can build, like using Airtable or N8 and like different platforms, but build like campaign calendars, stakeholder tracking systems, content pipelines. I can identify content gaps and suggest strategic story angle based on your data. And I mean, as human beings, we often have different things we are working on. So it wouldn't hurt to come up with a system that would help us remain consistent in a structured way, where you know that you have this and this and this projects or programs going on. These are the different timelines. This is what is happening next. So it even helps you in your planning. Notion collaboration backbone. This is more for knowledge-based, where meeting notes are automatically converted into action items. Team insights are aggregated into strategic themes and recommendations. Like you said, the tools that you will need, you will choose them based on your use cases and the need that you have and the gaps that you have, for example. So if your greatest gap is in keeping a record of the discussions and the meetings that you have, and you maybe, for example, you're primarily on customer service and sales, and you need to have a record of all these things and you don't have a proper structure in place, then Notion will be the place for you. If you're an NGO and you're a program manager whose primary work is to keep track of different projects, keep track of different donors, etc., then again, Airtable is the one for you. I mean, like we said, there are a lot more tools than what I'm talking about today. I will share my presentation, and at the end of the session, we have a small, I'll share with you also a small catalog of some of these tools and like what they do, like a use case and maybe like a example. But yeah, so like we said, the blueprint that you put in place is very, very essential, because it is what drives you in a structured way. You have a path where you have a clear plan. Kindly mute your microphone. We'll give you a chance later on to maybe ask a question. Yes, the fourth stage in your workflow is message crafting and inclusive content. I mean, we have different tools, even in writing, the different tools have different strengths. So like Grammarly, I feel like we all have an experience with Grammarly, from helping us, grammar check, to what's it called, rephrasing most of the words. Maybe like if a statement is biased, if the tone is maybe not right, you see all the red marks and the blue marks, and when you're using your Grammarly, basically you can use it for different purposes, like for example, just to ensure you have no bias in your work, and it is sensitive to different cultures. Write Sonic to scale content across blogs, emails, and social media while maintaining consistent messaging and SEO optimization. Copy AI, social media specialists generate multiple variation for different testing campaigns. Etc., etc. I mean, if you have other tools that is also working for you, you can mention them in the chatbot. And then, I think also with this messaging and inclusive content, it really depends on also what works for you as a communications special expert, or as a program manager, or as even just in doing your basic reports and briefings. I mean, I think we always have if you're given a chance and resources to make your briefs or make your content more appealing, then why not go for it? Because like my colleague said at the beginning of the session, you have I mean, AI is here to stay. So are you going to be left behind, or are you going to jump on the train and improve your work as well? Because others are going to use it anyway if you're not going to. So if that's the case, then are you going to still have a plain Excel sheet as your Gantt chart, or you're going to use an AI tool to come up with a more visually appealing and practical Gantt chart? Or yeah, that's a random example, but that's the idea. So inclusive storytelling, checklist, diverse representation, person-first language, avoid savior narratives. I mean, like for example, with Grammarly now, I mean, most of the time you have to be very sensitive you have to be very sensitive with how you put your content out there, especially when you want to ensure you don't fall in any sort of bias category, or even just being sensitive to different cultures. You may not have an intention for doing that, but then again, having some sort of peer review as with an AI tool to ensure that it is customized right, and like we said, the different ways, the different angles you can put your report, or you can put your proposal. You have the hero, savior perspective. You have we're going directly for the emotion. You have let's just talk about the impact. Let's put the beneficiary first. Let's say that 50 girls and 20 boys from this area that have been going through this and this have now have the skills to maybe help themselves, etc. I mean, how you with storytelling, I always say, like we said at the beginning of the session, rather, stories are what connects us together. It's the nexus that makes us have an intersubjective reality that we create, more or less. So I mean, if you're on a mission to empower young girls in a certain area, then the core thing that is bringing you there is you want to empower them and build their capacity. It's not for, that's an example. Or maybe, for example, if the thing that is bringing you is you want to save, it's climate change, and you want to ensure that the mangroves in a certain area are well maintained, so that the impact on the environment is kind of controlled. So what brings you together is that story and that narrative, and how you package it is very important. How you package it is basically what sells it. And whether it's a brand, whether it's an NGO, whether it's a humanitarian cause, at the end of the day, how you package and put out your story or your impact or whatever is way more important than even the actual impact that you have. Because unfortunately, it is what holds on to, it is what emphasizes on what you're actually doing. So for example, like when we rephrase this, we helped save 500 families. That's okay. Obviously, that is very, very, very big. But then when you say 500 families that built their livelihoods with access to microloans, then that's quite objective. Like, I already know that 500 families built their livelihoods with access to microloans. It has avoided this via the hero perspective, and it has put the beneficiaries first. But then again, it has shown the impact, and your impact is that these people, the families that were in need, have actually rebuilt their livelihoods through the microloans that you gave them. So you see, sometimes we may not have the time to actually sit down and think about how best we're going to put the stories. But then again, like we said, you can bounce ideas and brainstorm with your ChatGPT or Flow to find different ways of phrasing it such that you still remain objective. And yeah, you include different perspectives, acknowledge complexities, and shift to the community. Because at the end of the day, to the community, whether it's a business community, whether it's the community in which you're doing your work in, regardless of what your clientele is, you have to fix on them, because at the end of the day, whatever you're doing is a product for them. Okay, I see a hand up, and Colin is saying there's no sound. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you quite clearly.
No,
it could be an issue with his connection.
Okay, maybe you can check your connection, Colin. Yes. And so stage 5, visual storytelling and revolution. I think this is where most of us are interested in. I mean, we all know Canva, that has been used by many for coming up with brand content, presentations, posters, etc. But now Canva AI has given a chance where you can do your magic edit for photos. You can, what's it called? Increase resolution, you can blur out things, you can add different components and make it more interactive. And the good thing is, especially for nonprofits, we have different platforms that offer that you can get Canva for free, and that gives you a chance. I mean, it's low cost and you still get a chance to make your content more visually appealing, and you get to come up with different things to even like mobilize and advertise for your mobilize and market your different programs, etc. I mean, there are numerous image generation tools. I mean, you can mention them in the chatbot. We have Midjourney, Nano Banana, Ideogram, DALL-E 3, Blue. There's a whole lot of tools that you can use in image generation. Some that, and even some are already integrated in the chatbots that you have. So they basically help to generate campaign, art, visualize abstract ideas, and it's perfect for creating unique visual identities that differentiate your organization. I mean, you have to, of course, once again, you have to be very careful even with the image generation, because you have to be sensitive to the consumers of the visuals that you're creating. But if you're maybe just coming up with a visual of an idea that you have, you can use various methods like infographics, cartoons, different things. But then again, like we said, there are ethical things you always have to keep at the back of your mind. Like, for example, just even tagging that this is an AI-generated image when if it's a report or something for official documentation. Yeah, pick to chat, like I think from the name says pick to chat, so you can transform pictures, text, data, so it can take different inputs, but the output is you get infographics. So it's a poster, a flyer, a newsletter, so it has like most of the templates already in place, and you just, you can prompt it to come up with something and you edit it further. That's the good thing with it. And how you can apply this is that you can transform your research findings, you can transform your surveys, you can transform your reports, because like we said, I feel like it's a fundamental thing. It is bombarding to the eye when there's so many words, but then if it's something visual, it's easier to understand. Yeah, visual strategy rules, simplicity beats complexity. I think that is quite straightforward. One key idea per visual. Don't put too many elements in a picture. I mean, a picture, a visual, an infographic is supposed to tell a story by itself. But then when you're doing too much, you kind of miss the point. So you have to be very intentional about what you want to put out there. And also don't overdo with the, And then representation matters. Show diverse perspectives and diverse faces. I mean, the world is a global village, and even through your visuals and your stories, it's good to capture the diversity and just ensure different representations are actually captured in your visual. That is obviously also dependent on your target audience. Emotion drives action. Like for anyone in design or anyone who's had an experience in design, then you know that if you look at something, the colors that you've used, depending on what type of product you're working on, the font, how all these different elements and pictures are distributed on a poster, all these are very important. Because, I mean, if you look at, or I think I can just ask in the chat bot, like what do you think, what do you feel about that statement? The color psychology, that it drives emotion. Like red, the color red, it often drives certain emotion. I mean, that's why Ferraris are red in color. The color blue, I'm not sure why the color blue maybe would have a meaning. I don't know, people say they're feeling blue. Different people just like the color blue. Can you use your microphone? I can't see who's speaking, but please.
Samuel, please mute your mic. Samuel.
But yeah, I mean, you can give examples of what color means what to you. But the idea is, even when you look at different brand colors that are used out here, like Google's colors, Microsoft. I mean, it's more than just a color. There's a certain like all the different elements in your visuals or in your content, in your story, in your content that you're trying to deliver a story has a way it makes the end user feel. So whether you are skilled in knowing all these different factors or you will use AI to come up with that, then again, it's different. The same way black and gold is used to showcase luxury. Okay, let me read what Kevin has said. It depends on context. Red might mean passion or danger, blue might mean calm or trust, but these aren't universal. In Africa, colors often carry layered cultural meaning. For example, white can symbolize purity in one place and mourning in another. So colors drive emotion on its own. Okay, that's also true. There's the cultural factor to it, but there's also the universal, I think, factor to it where I mean, if something is, I mean, it's not even just about that. There's also the colors that just feel positive energy. There's the colors that feel a bit dark and gloomy and contrast, etc. But it's not even just about colors. It's more the how visually appealing your not even how visually appealing it is, how intentional you are about your visuals would invoke some emotions. So you have to also look at some of these factors depending on how effective you want your material to be. Yes, strategy, delivery, and distribution. So this is basically, how to package the same material. I mean, whether it's you have your infographics, you have your pictures that you've generated, you have your script that you've used, Claude or whatever, to come up with. Then again, now how you're going to package this. So the different ways in which you can deliver your story. You have videos, like you can use Agent to create multilingual advocacy videos with AI avatars. One recording generates 29 language versions, reducing localization costs. 11 labs for what's it called, audio, for human quality voice narration for podcasts, documentaries, testimonials, and it creates consistent brand voice across all audio content. I mean, there's more than this as well. Like we said, you have View 3, you have Synthesia, you have InVideo, and they all have their different strengths. I mean, they're all video creation to AI tools, but they all have their different strengths. There's others that allow you to edit your videos. There's others that are primarily around using avatars. There's others that you can use stock images to come up with different things. There's others you can just transform the different images and frames that you have into an actual video that is showing a process, like pouring coffee, like this visual. I'm pretty sure we've all seen these different interesting AI created marketing materials. So yeah, how you deliver your content. If it's going to be an explainer video, I even saw that Google has this storybook thing where you can, I mean, as an educator, you want to make your materials as fun as possible. You want to teach people about climate. You want to teach people about the importance of entrepreneurship. You want to teach people about communication. You want to teach people about different things, but how you're going to customize it is important. And you have different avenues of doing that: videos, audios, storybooks. And once again, AI is the tool that gives you the chance to do all these different things. So yeah, and MailChimp, that's for email optimization. The personalized donor journey is based on giving history engagement. I mean, you've done your write-up. So how are you going to reach different people? Now you can use MailChimp to just disperse it to different people in different ways. And that can even make you more visible. Yeah. And then, modern audiences need different touch points before taking action. And AI makes omnichannel presence sustainable by enabling you to create the most powerful story in multiple formats. I mean, 15-second social media posts, 3-minute videos, blogs, podcasts, infographics. I mean, like we said, you're doing your storytelling, but then, I mean, the term storytelling is also, I feel like it goes quite well with marketing, because you're putting your story out there of your impact and you want to engage the right people. But how well that system works is also goes hand in hand in your marketing or your digital marketing, whichever word that you decide to use there. And it's what structure you put in place. I mean, you want to do 15-minute videos, you want to do a Twitter space, you want to do an Instagram live, you want to do videos where you're putting up on your website or on YouTube. You want to put all these different things. So you get to come up with different ways of doing it. And I mean, diversifying your channel is always a safer bet than using just one channel, because you have different audiences that you are reaching through these different channels. The people you reach on Facebook are not the same people you're going to meet on Instagram. So yeah, the people who would constantly read your post on maybe Medium or something are not the same people who would interact with your infographics somewhere else. So it helps to even diversify the channels that you have in your storytelling, because the more diverse you are in these different strategies of delivering it, the higher your chances of putting your story out there. Yes. Do you have any questions so far before I continue? I am not very far from finishing up. I mean, ethical AI, it is always ethics and guidelines are very important. Ethics and guidelines are very important in the use and adoption of artificial intelligence, because there's a common debate is AI is a double-edged sword. And there's all these different perspectives about the good and the bad. But at the end of the day, as a tool that is anyway here to stay, the best you can do is learn how to use it responsibly and in an ethical manner. So the key ethical topics that I have referenced UNESCO's AI ethical principles applied to storytelling, because I mean, I primarily work in education, so I reference that because it resonates with what we're doing today, storytelling. That's basically just content. So number one is bias audit. You have to ensure that the content that you have, the output, is not just good quality, but it also lacks any sort of biasness, especially if you have a sensitive target group, for example. I mean, if you're working in the global south and you're putting together some materials, it would be sensitive to include in your prompt saying, diversify identities and context, and you have to ensure that all the communities that you're targeting are, for example, referenced, because it is just it is not, it makes more sense. I mean, I can't create a picture that is representing Kilifi County, but then nothing in the picture is showing Kilifi County. So that is not very unbiased. So, and I mean, most of the tools that we use are trained primarily on data sets that are found on social media, like Reddit, etc. And most of these capture more Western perspectives and stereotypes. And I mean, it's a work in progress. And right now we have even more data sets that capture all other places globally. But then again, if your prompt is not very clear, you may get output that doesn't really resonate with your local context. And like we said, the whole idea is that you get to use AI to come up with stories and content that is very much localized and that fits your context. The other thing that is very important is privacy and consent. I mean, as we all know that it's just this big tool that has a database with all these different type of information. So even what you put, you have to be quite careful. You have to read through the fine print to see if everything you're putting is improving not just your model, but even other people's model, like it's training on. If that is the case, then you have to be careful on what type of data you put out there. You can't put credit card information or beneficiary information that you have no consent to. So we have to be careful around that as well. So we have to be, I mean, when you're maybe doing an analysis or something, use the right tool where even the privacy policy states that it is not used maybe for learning. I mean, if as an organization you decide that you are on Microsoft 365, for example, maybe you can now consider getting the license for an enterprise so that it doesn't land on your information. Like, doing your research and audit is very important before you dip your toes very much into the whole realm of AI, especially if you are interacting with any personal data or something you don't really have consent to. And the other thing is transparency. It is very essential, especially in write-ups, that you've used an AI image. For example, if you've done a newsletter about a certain impact story you're doing with on a community that you worked closely with, but then again you used AI pictures to showcase that, then you have to ensure that you've indicated that. I mean, it's not that it's wrong, but it's just to show, it's just to, I mean, the same way you reference where you get your information from, you definitely have to also indicate that this is an AI generated image or it was done with assistance of AI, whether it's editing. But yeah, it's essential to be transparent with your audience, also just to be on your own side, to be quite open. I think it's essential. And yeah, of course, the most important thing is human oversight. There's a high risk of AI hallucinations, cultural insensitivity, and loss of authentic voice. I mean, the more you use ChatGPT, the more you can clearly tell if something is AI generated or not, because the tone and the voice is different. It loses authenticity. So yeah, every AI output requires human review, especially facts, cultural reference, and emotional claims. But this is also more because you have to own your work. We have to own our work. We have to own the story you're telling. I can't write a story about something and I don't even understand what a certain statement means because I just used AI to write it. And when you're asked to maybe explain on that, you have no clue because you really didn't review your work. So even in terms of ownership, draft with AI and edit it yourself and customize it. And now, yeah, of course, if there's some protocols in place, ensure that it has been approved before you put it out there, just for ethical consideration. So yeah, before running any prompts, you have to ask if you have specified diverse representation. Does it respect privacy? Like, you have to ask yourself some questions. If you have to fact check all the resources that you have. And yeah, I mean, the voice, the tone and the voice that you use to express your story is very important as well. And I think we all know that. I mean, if my tone is demanding and if my tone is more emotional and compelling, I have a higher chance of reaching out to people and you touch their hearts. If a story is to touch their hearts, to maybe donate or something. So all these different factors are important to ensure that you are still using AI as a partner in productivity, but not as an assistant to do all the work for you. So you own your work and you remain relevant. Yeah. Like I said, after the sessions, once we have the email addresses from the attendance form, we'll share with you like a catalog with tools, use cases, and prompt examples, etc., that you can reference that is specifically tailored to storytelling. Yeah. So yeah, for NGO focused tools, we have, I mean, what's research, superpower, perplexity, Canva, yeah, Hagen, Notebook LM, brand focused. These are, like we said, I think I've already talked about them. So these are more or less depending on your use cases and how relevant they are. And for the NGOs, I would like to share with you a website that you can look into. I mean, if you're a registered NGO, you have access to discounted softwares, and I mean, for it. So just look at good stacks on your browser, and then you'll find a different set of things, and you can even get to redeem Canva for free there, or you can also get OpenAI at a discounted price, etc. So I mean, I find it quite helpful for that. Yeah. Integration architecture, start with one tool per workflow, master it completely before expanding. It's better to use, it's better to perfect your preferred tools than 15 tools poorly. But then again, it depends on what exactly you're looking for. I mean, I personally, my tip and my best practice is I like counter checking. So if I get real-time information from Grok, I'll go and check Perplexity to get like the actual reference sources to see if it actually matches up, and then I can draft somewhere else, and then I can do. I mean, depending exactly on what type of thing you're working on, it's also essential to kind of do that. Yeah, there are different success stories in different sectors. This doesn't really capture it, but then again, yeah, the thing is you can get an idea of different use cases, and each use case study demonstrate like the same principle. AI amplifies strategic thinking rather than replacing it, and success comes from clear objectives, ethical frameworks, and human sight at every stage. That's how you get to have quality output that is still authentic, because in the name of efficiency and quality output, you cannot lose touch with authenticity of our work, especially if it comes to impact and communication. It's supposed to facilitate. I mean, like I always say, technology and AI, to be precise, because this is the topic today, is like an engine that facilitates all this. So it is supporting a cause. If you are a marketer, okay, that's actually not the right choice. If I'm not a marketer, I'm not going to be a marketing specialist just because ChatGPT exists. I still need a lot of background information so that when I'm prompting it, I have context. You have, the objective you're looking for. So it has to be very structured. And yeah, these are different ways that you can use AI. I mean, if you want to reach indigenous communities with limited translation budgets, then now you can come up with these videos where you can just use what data sets they have in the what's it called, natural language program processor, and then you can just use that to come up with materials where you actually get to reach your target audience with low cost, and you still get to achieve what you're looking for. I mean, transcription right now, you can do your transcription with AI as well. And I mean, even someone recently was saying it's easier to learn a new language with AI than it is with Duolingo. So yeah, there are different things you can do. Yeah, for other companies, communicating complex sustainability commitments to 5,000 plus employees across 25 countries. So yeah, Notebook LM converted technical reports into digestible summaries. 11 labs created multilingual podcast, and Notion coordinated global campaign rollout. So like these tools are just complementing each other depending on what you need. And then you have your impact where awareness has increased and sustainability goals have grown up. And there's faster content production and standardized message while respecting cultural nuance. So yeah, sustainability is sustainable fashion brand competing against fast fashion with authentic supply chains, stories that resonate with Gen Z consumers. So Mid-Journey visualized artisan stories, Copy AI tested 50 plus social media variations, Suno creates emotional soundtrack for video content. So there's that complementing each other. That is there, and that's how you get to achieve the objective that you have. Yeah, so in summary, the strategic storytelling mindset is stories first, tools second. AI amplifies your strategy, it doesn't create it. So you kind of have to have an idea of what you want, but then AI can help you structure it further, and you have how do I put this? It's like an assistant, but not really an assistant. So you get to brainstorm ideas instead of it's like an all-rounded information system that has different data sets. So you get to brainstorm and throw ideas. You're like, I really want to come up with a design that fits this building, blah, 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 but then I don't know what to do exactly. So how are you going to do that? You have a platform where you can bounce ideas, but it doesn't mean it's going to create it for you. So you always have to ask yourself fundamental questions while when you're coming up with your stories. Who needs to hear this message? What should they feel? What action should they take? Tools serve strategy, and it's never the reverse. So remember that you have to have your strategy and the idea of what you want to put out there, and now you can use the tools to objectively come up with that. Ethics as enabler, not an obstacle. Do no harm is not a constraint, it's a competitive advantage. And in the era of AI generated misinformation, trustworthy storytelling wins long term. So I mean, you have an advantage to stand out, while majority can be going for inauthentic materials. So you get to retain your credibility by still using AI, fine, but your ethics are guiding you to ensure that it is authentic and credible. And then iterate, don't perfect. AI outputs are always drafts requiring human curation. So your expertise lies in strategic selection, choosing the exceptional 10% while discarding the generic 90%. So I mean, if you like the structure in which it broke down things, and you like maybe the first paragraph and you don't like somewhere in between, it has become really delusional and not really putting out the message that you want. Pick out what you like and iterate again to get what you're looking for. Don't just fall for the first output that you will get, because often you have to keep prompting it over and over again to get something that you're looking for. And yeah, AI plus human is greater than AI or human alone. And like we've said, we're in an era where we have to upskill ourselves in good time and upskill ourselves right and ethically so that we are at an advantage. So you bring empathy, cultural context, and strategic judgment. AI brings scale, speed, variation. And together you can create more compelling stories, reach broader audiences, and drive greater impact than either could achieve independently. I don't know, do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts? Okay. Yes. Yeah, so it's about that's about it for strategic storytelling. And then now, once again, prompt engineering. This slide doesn't really cut it when we say prompt engineering, because like we said, the quality of your output is highly dependent on the quality of your input, and the foundations of effective AI communication is prompt engineering. And the thing is, this is like the most basic prompting framework is set the stage, define the task, and specify the output. This is the most basic, but there are various other frameworks for prompting. Create, it's called RTF, the different frameworks that we have, but also fortunately we also have platforms that help us come up with this prompt. I mean, you can write your bad prompt there and it will refine it in accordance to the different frameworks that we have. And I think for that one, since I didn't include it in my presentation, I can give you 2 of them that you can be using to just come up with your prompts. I mean, like we said, garbage in, garbage out. So if you want to really improve the quality of your prompts, you can use these platforms to come up with better prompts. But then again, you also train yourself gradually to how you can communicate with AI to get the best results. And yeah, so set the stage. Like the most basic thing in a prompt is you have to really clarify your context. Tell AI who it's talking to, define expertise level if needed, and specify constraints or limitation. Context is the foundation of every prompt. And context basically is you're limiting it to that knowledge base that it should pick from. And how most generative AI platform works is it just picks up a pattern and it pays attention to that pattern and generates output based on those keywords that you've put. So ideally, if your keywords are not as specific as they should be, then you will get not appealing outputs. And then define the task action. State exactly what you want using precise action verbs. Include specific requirements and break complex tasks into numbered steps. I mean, the same way if you're giving an instruction to someone and you give a general instruction like write a report, that's not really gonna give you what exactly you want. But if you say write a report in this structure, and I want it to capture this and this and this, and I want it to reflect our work in this, but then I also want the output of the report to be a 4-pager that has, like, you have to be very specific on what you want. And even the task, like breaking it down really helps. Like, ensure that the executive summary contains this and this and this, ensure that maybe in an image now, for example, actually in a video, when you're doing a video, so you have to specify the size, the ratio, the different maybe lighting settings, what type of movement do you want, what type of transition do you want, what type of animation do you want, colors, if there's something specific, do you want it to capture maybe a certain aspect, do you want it to capture a village perspective that has hats and everything. Like the more specific you are and how you break it down into different components depending on what you're working on. If it's text based, you give specific requirements on like the different topics you want. If it's an image, you give specific requirements on the size, on different things, even like filter or effects, etc. And then now for outputs, define the structure, set the length, clarify the tone and style, and it eliminates guesswork and ensures you get exactly what you're looking for. So a very easy example of a bad and good prompt: analyze this data set. I mean, you will get like the most basic analysis of that data set. But then when you say you're a data scientist analyzing our quarterly sales data, identify key revenue patterns, create visualizations, and highlight anomalies, focus on customer segments and regional variations, provide 3 actionable insights in bullet format. Like that is very direct and you will get exactly what you've asked for. And it's different from when you just have a plain prompt that you have not set the stage and you have not defined the task in a structured manner and you haven't defined the format that you want. So always try your best to give it a role, whether it's a marketing specialist, whether it's a program manager, whether it's a communications expert. The more context you give it, the more it knows the role to assume. And then you have to give it a specific constraint. Focus on the Kenyan market, on the European market, on education sector. Focus on whether it's field, it's demographics, whatever, because all these factors shape the quality, it shapes how contextualized your work is. And then request examples and variations if you want. I mean, that time ChatGPT like gives you 2 different outputs so that you choose between the 2 to see like what type of format works. Yeah. So your strategic communication starts now. I mean, I can already see that majority of you are already actively using AI here and there. And like I said, there are so many tools out here that they keep improving, the models keep improving, and new ones keep coming out, targeting a different gap that was missed by something else. So you can try every now and then to pick a tool, a project, or a story that you can enhance from time to time. And of course, stay human-centered. Technology serves the story, not the other way around. It's technology serving you and AI is serving you. So it's not the other way around. And you have to shape the uptake of it by taking personal initiative, learning yourself so that you know how it will integrate into your workflow. You know how it will integrate into your daily work. And of course, sharing your story, your success stories and best practices. I mean, whether it's within your friend group, it's within your workplace, it's really interesting what you can learn through these different exchanges where I share my success story, you share your success story, and you actually get to learn what works and what doesn't. So helping each other discover the power of AI-enhanced communication and work is really essential. And the organizations making the biggest difference tomorrow will be the ones who've mastered AI-enhanced storytelling today, because stories matter and your missions deserve the best tools for you to put them out there. And yes, strategic storytelling with AI isn't about technology, but it's about amplifying your authentic voice to create meaningful change. So start small, measure impact, iterate quickly, and always keep your mission at the center. Yeah, I am now done with my presentation. If you have any questions, I think I'll throw it back to you, Rose, and then we can maybe get into the Q&A.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Sharama. We can appreciate how with reactions. This is, I would say that this is honestly a very elaborate breakdown and description of AI and how to use and appreciate AI. Personally, I have used a few. I have integrated AI in a few spaces, but this was more elaborate. A very wonderful presentation. A lot of information to take in and a lot to put into practice. I believe that majority of the people in this meeting room or session are at here because for one reason or in one way or the other, they have used AI. They would like to use AI, or they would like to enhance how they are currently using AI. Thank you very much, and we appreciate you're putting together all the presentation. I would just like to send it out now that if you have a question, you can put it on the chat box, you can raise your hand, you can yes, and you will get an opportunity to probably unmute and speak. Somebody mentions that they're totally new to a lot of AI tools, and this has been this they have shared a lot through this presentation. Thank you very much, Adebayo. Ms. Ramo, honestly, this was this has carried a lot of information, and I honestly believe that if we put this into practice, a lot is going to change. So as they're raising the questions or the hands or putting questions in the chat box, I think I'll probably just want to pick out a few takeout from this session myself. So the first and the biggest takeout that came earlier in the session was when telling a story, the audience is very important. You have to be very specific to the audience and very intentional about the audience, and this means that the story becomes more relatable to the specific audience that we are talking about. If there's anything that has that maybe I would dispute before today was that AI is you have said AI is not replacing strategic thinking, but multiplying or enhancing it. In most conversations that I have had in where people talk about why AI or why not, it is thought that it is replacing that strategic thinking. It is taking away autonomy of thought. But I must say that this has made it more open to the fact that it is just enhancing, it is saving us time that would be spent doing a whole lot, and it is allowing us to redirect or refocus that time and energy to doing more important things in our storytelling and in our communication. So to the team, you can raise your hand, you can drop a question on the chat for Ms. Sharamo to respond to as we continue towards the conclusion of the session.
Okay,
so
I think
I am looking at the
We have a few questions on the Q&A.
Yes,
Please
please.
check. Yeah.
I think I can have a go through the questions in the Q&A section. There's a comment here: success stories, impact stories, stories of change. I'm not very sure if that's a question or a comment. So yeah, I can go to the next one, where you can find Notebook LM. Notebook LM, you can just directly Google on your browser, or also it's part of Google's application stack. So when you just click on the what's it called, the 9 dots at the top right side of your Chrome browser, you'll find a list of tools, and at the bottom you'll find Notebook LM. Yeah, and how can we address the ethical challenges of AI in communication, especially issues related to privacy and handling of personal data? For this one, Elizabeth, what I can say is you first need to somewhat come up with, even if it's a simple guideline for within your institution, or even you can look at what is already existing in specifically for communication and in the field in which you work in, because what you can say is ethical challenges are there, but then again, it's more in your daily use and what practices that you have to kind of just be safe. This can be in what type of data are you uploading in on your AI tool. It can be it can even be being strict on the type of even when you're working on maybe an analysis of the reports that you have, you can just, best you can do is try to have practices that ensure you retain the authenticity of everything you're doing, and you abide by the basic ethical rules, and which is just basically consent, privacy, and bias. Those are like the main important things. And then again, practicing basic digital hygiene is essential in this. I mean, what type of data you're putting out there, read through the fine print of, not even the fine print, just even read through, like ChatGPT, for example. What many people don't notice is under settings itself, you'll see somewhere about data controls, and you switch it on or off, whether it will improve the model for everyone or not. And that's a small step in ensuring that whatever that you're interacting with on ChatGPT is not used to improve the model. It's a small step, but for most of these things, you have to ensure that before you agree to it, you actually know how your data is going to be used so that you know what you're going to put there. And for some tools also, you have to choose it selectively based on how they're trained. Like, for example, Claude is known for being a safe option, especially for information, because it's there's a I don't know how to explain it without being technical, but there are different ways in which these tools input data and learn. So, and Claude is one of the tools that is not really using all the, it has its own, it has its own knowledge base, and there are different controls to ensure that it is a safe model. It's not trying to be as optimum and as fast as ChatGPT. It's more reasonable and it resonates with safety. So it's more or less these practices that you can use to ensure you step by step, like what data controls are there, how is the bias here, I mean, is this information necessary? It's just those questions you ask yourself based on what you require. I hope that has answered your question. AI is often marketed as neutral, yet every output carries hidden biases from the data it's trained on. How do we confront the myth of AI neutrality in storytelling, especially when those biases can quietly rewrite history? I think one thing I say is AI even gives you the disclaimer that this is not accurate. This is primarily giving you access to interact with loads and loads of databases and data sets. So for this one, like I said, generative AI, even the models that they use is what is called transformer systems, and like the paper that led to transformer systems is what is called attention is all you need. And that basically means that it picks up on these terms, on what you're asking it, goes through the database, and then generates content around that. Like, what could this possibly mean when you're saying write a report on an impact report on this, write a story on this, write a newsletter on this. So by default, you have to actively co-create with AI, because there's a basic disclaimer that it is not accurate, it is not true. Like we said, it's not an assistant, it's a co-creation tool. So it's more, you have to be actively involved to actually own what you're doing and not depend 100% on it, because it's a double-edged sword that is using just information that it has there. So there's a high chance it can be right, but there's also a high chance it can hallucinate, and the disclaimer is already there. So I wouldn't believe on the neutrality of AI. Yeah, AI delivers at lightning speed, but storytelling thrives on reflection, listening, and slow meaning making. How do we stop AI from turning stories into fast content instead of deep connection? For this one now, you more or less have to come up with your own strategic workflow that ensures that it captures like the reflective bit, that it captures that you have these baselines, these are the constraints that you, reflection, basically how you can interpret it is constraint, so that you limit it in a certain context, and you ensure that you've specified the tone and what constraints are there, like what you want it to often iterate on, like what type of reflection you want it to have. So you have to be very specific on that. So for you to ensure it is not just highly optimized marketing content, but then it captures exactly the values that you're trying to put out there. Once again, that goes back to how you prompt it. And what type of workflow that you have to ensure that you still retain what exactly you do, but just using different tools or different systems for that. I think I'll just quickly go through a few more questions. People talk ethics until it costs them reach or revenue. When was the last time you refused a client because an AI-driven approach would be unethical, and what happened? I wouldn't really, I mean, for me, I always make it clear. With AI, there's a very ambitious goal that you want to achieve with this, but you have to be very practical on what is possible. You want to improve maybe a finance system, but then you have to be very careful what you do there. Like, try, and what I always say is start small, fast, and pilot, because at the end of the day, this is still a computerized system and there are risks involved. So like we said, there are workflows in which you can integrate AI with ease, and then there's others you need to even rather build it yourself. And it's not just ethical consideration that is at play here. It is also other risk factors. I mean, cybersecurity is a greater risk right now with AI. So what does that mean for you? Are you just going to blindly do everything, or first you pilot it small? And for such things, I feel like I mean, it's just trying to be safe and careful. I mean, if you do something for a client that would backfire on you because it was unethical, you'd rather just put it out there in the beginning. This is quite ambitious, and you have to know the risks that you're taking with this so that you're not liable for it. But then again, yeah, you'd rather pilot small, assess, and then you see what is there, and be very careful with where you're integrating AI as well. That's why you first have to have some sort of guidelines or policies to even ensure that your team members and the different initiatives that are coming up is still aligned with that. There are even like different systems that allow integrations but don't allow AI integrations. And one of those examples is like a school management system, for example. I mean, it can have a lot of possibilities, but there are ethical risks that would be involved if you integrate AI to some extent. But then again, you can integrate it such that you just have a chat platform that it can interact with students. But then maybe having it such that it has this constant data analysis to give you data can bring up more risk because you are linking it to a third-party application. So it's a lot of reflections around that. And yeah, have some sort of guidelines to ensure that you are guided in all these different tools and adoption things. Yeah. How can we prompt better? How you prompt better, number one, is with practice. And then number two, you kind of have to know what different frameworks and structures that are there depending on the output that you need. But then I also say that, I mean, you have AI to help you with prompting, so why not go for that? I mean, it saves you less time, and the more you use it, the more you get to actually even learn yourself. So when you're directly chatting with your AI tool, you with practice, you get to know. But then again, you can start off by using these prompt optimizers to know like exactly what it means to use this framework, what it means to optimize for ChatGPT, what it means to optimize for Midjourney, what it means to optimize for Nano Banana. So the way you just have to first learn, but it's more through practice. Yeah. There's a lot of don't use AI in your work when it's there to simplify the way we do things. What is so bad about that? I mean, like I said, AI is a double-edged sword, and it can drive laziness, but it can also drive creativity. So those are different factors that are dependent on other things, including even the workplace environment. I mean, there are workplaces that are receptive to AI, and there are workplaces that are not receptive to AI. And there are spaces that are receptive to AI, and there are spaces that are not. Like, for example, in academia, the reception is not as high as in other places. But another thing is, you have to use it right. So even when you're the thing that is bad about using AI without really using it right is that there's the danger in which you can possibly do harm, where you're not really careful with what type of data you're putting there. So you get to bypass some ethical bits, or you get to not really get the content you're looking for because you are just, you're just trying to use ChatGPT, but you haven't really reflected on what output you're looking for and what workflow is there, blah, blah, blah. So what I can say is that one is highly dependent on other factors, like we said, workplace environment, what kind of guidelines you have in that, because the exchange on the use of AI has to be more active so that people get to be more receptive to it, unfortunately. Yeah, and what tricks and things can to ensure we maximize. Tips and tricks and things you can use. I mean, for me, what works really good, and I feel like it's an easy way of doing, is we have the greatest tools that we have are our devices and our gadgets. And I feel like it's the easiest way to learn while you're still doing other things actively. So maybe even following a few pages or platforms that are constantly having these discussions on best practices, what's new, that helps a big bunch, because you get to see from different experiences of people who are actively using these tools, and it really helps you stay up to date, know what is trending and what are the best practices for maximizing these things. Yeah, I think I have answered most of the questions. I also see time is not on our side.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Sharamo, for taking your time to go through all the questions, and also for taking your time to take us through this presentation. I must say again, this was very elaborate, and we are going to remember AI is a very important tool if used responsibly, and we need to always have ethical thoughts and concerns ahead of everything. Time is really not on our side. I do not know if we have any more questions. But in the meantime, since we do not have any on our Q&A and I do not see any hands up at the moment, I would just like to finish before I hand over back to say that I have learned that the quality of output is really directly proportional to the quality of input. And the more you use AI, the more you become better at prompting. So let us appreciate and use AI responsibly and be more positive about it. So I am Rose Walker. I have been your moderator, and I work or I engage in a young people's space with the Duke of Edinburgh International Award as the Africa Region representative at the moment. Very happy to have moderated this session. I am just going to throw this baton back to Ms. Sharon Kamau to finalize with us as we have respect for everybody's time. Thank you, Ms. Sharamo, and we look forward to interacting with you in other spaces. Ms. Sharon?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me clearly. Yeah, I think I'm audible enough. You can hear my thoughts. All right. So thank you so much, Miss, for the wonderful presentation. I've learned a lot. I mean, there are other platforms and applications that I didn't even know of, and I am definitely going to use them and of course, reach out to you, Nikki Kwama. Yeah, and Poka, you've done a good job. Thank you so much for moderating the session. And once again, just to thank all participants for participating in this amazing session. I hope you've learned. I know Poka is going to share with us the evaluation form and also the attendance sheet. Yeah, I don't know if she's shared. Yeah, she's going to share. Yeah, she has actually shared it. All right, so ensure you share your feedback, fill the evaluation form so that we can use the emails to also send you the things that Ms. Bukayo has said she'll share with us. Thank you very much, and maybe we can take a group selfie. I am not in a position to take selfies today. Currently, I am on my phone because my laptop has decided to go off. But if you're in a position to take a group selfie, as we always do, please do, and share in the group. And of course, post in your LinkedIn account and tag us. Tell us what stood out for you in this session. What is one thing that you're going to implement going forward? And see you in the next one. It is on 9th, I believe, and it's going to be an amazing session actually, because it's on photography and videography, and it's more on ethics. How do you ethically tell these stories, especially when you're working with vulnerable groups, maybe children, if you're working with people who are affected by drought. How do you ethically tell these stories? And it's going to be an amazing session. So I hope to see all of you here. And thank you so much to everyone who has made it to this session and up to the end. And yes, we're also still planning for a physical event in November 29th. And I hope to see all of you there. If those who can fly, those who can walk, yeah, I hope to see all of you there. And yeah, thank you very much. Have an amazing night ahead. morning, afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. And I think there's a guy called Kevin. I don't know the next name. Kevin, I think he's from Botswana. Please side chat me or email me when you're in a position to. Thank you very much and have a lovely night. You can leave at your own pleasure after taking the group selfie. Ensure you take a group selfie. Thank you so much. And switch off your video and take a group selfie. Maybe Miss Bukayo can help us take the selfies. And once they're done, you can let us know. Yeah, people can leave the session. Thank you so much. Have a lovely time ahead. Thank you very much. I think we can end the session.